Well, welcome back to the channel. Today is June 17th, 2026, and I am looking at Luna Classic. So, before we get started, why don't we just get this out of the air? Luna Classic is arguably one of the most hated assets in cryptocurrency. In in April of 2022, it had a high of $118. In May, it then hit a high. It started going down, and it was at $87, and then proceeded at about May 7th of 2022 to dump 99% to 0.0000030089. This is remembered as one of the worst cryptocurrency crashes of all time. There are still YouTubers and investors and traders who mention and bemoan this particular crash. It was absolutely brutal to retail investors, whales, and institutions that were in Luna Classic. And so after that crash, pretty much it was considered a dead coin. The chain itself, I guess, I don't know all the details. Like, I think it split off. They made a new chain and they called it Luna. And this particular asset got renamed and was called Luna Classic. To all those investors and whales and retail traders, to most of them, Luna is dead and they never want to touch it again. And that is pretty much the media story too, that Luna is dead. However, it's actually alive and is probably going to be one of the surprise hits of this bull run. And so what I want to go over today is the case for why Luna is set to have an extremely impressive bull run. So before we get started, I am an amateur trader investor. I have a day job that does not involve finance. So please keep in mind that I may not know all the nuance of the charts as some more experienced traders who've been trading for 20 years do. However, what my goal is just to go over the charts as I see them, and hopefully this helps you make a decision or helps you to do more research to see if it's something that you want to get into. So let's get started. I am looking at the monthly chart of Luna Classic on the Kraken exchange. Ironically, Kraken doesn't actually call Luna Classic LUNC like many other exchanges do. So on many exchanges, it's LUNC. However, on Kraken, it's LUNA. So that makes it confusing as well. On this monthly chart, as you can see, Luna doesn't look like, when you look at it from a monthly perspective, you're probably thinking, yeah, it looks dead to me, but it's actually not. And I want to show you why. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this. Luna Classic has been in this channel for about, let me bring up my ruler. I actually didn't probably do it right. Let me start this. Let me redo this ruler here. We got to start here. It's been in this channel for 47 months. Okay? That's over 3 years. And essentially, or 1,431 days. Now, if you look at the structure of this channel, this, in technical analysis, could be considered a bull flag. You notice that you have the long move and then the downward action like this. And if you look at this particular channel that it's in, it's touched the channel 3 times on the bottom, but it's touched it 1, 2, 3, I'm going to call this particular point, even though it didn't quite touch it, a 4. But you can say 4 or 5, but this one did. So you can say it's touched the upper channel 5 times, possibly 4, if you want to not count this particular candle here. And the more you pierce this channel, the likelihood is that it's going to start to fail. Now, you may say, okay, yeah, but we're in the 000 launch. How great could this be? Well, if you take this particular low here, okay, this is where it last touched the bottom channel, and it went down a little bit, and then it started to be curving up. If you take this whole move, that's a 472% gain. Now, keep in mind that because the coin is so low, in the sense of right now it's sitting at looks like it's 4078484. To retail traders, this can be very enticing, because that means with a smaller amount of money, you're getting a lot of coins. And so psychologically, it can actually spur buying of this particular coin if it actually continues to go on its trend. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop down to the weekly chart here. And I just sort of want to go over some of the essentially the moving averages on the weekly scale. So if we bring up the 20, you can see that right now on the weekly, it's been following this 20. Now, I know that you see these prices below the 20. However, you got to think of this moving average as not just a line, it's more of a zone. The best way I can describe it is like if you take your brush here, it's that's not really what I wanted. Let me get the other thing here real quick, the highlighter. It's more like a zone. And right now, price has been following that moving average and pretty much going up. Now, right now, it's moving back down, but it's still healthy move wise from a weekly perspective. If you bring on the 200 moving average, you have an extremely flat moving average. And what happened was, on the weekly scale, price reached this 200-day moving average, but the 200-day moving average has its strongest support and resistance zone. Or when I say resistance zone, what I meant is it has its greatest support and resistance properties when it is flat. On a lower moving average, say 50 and below, the moving average support and resistance properties are best when it's angled and it's not flat. When the short-term moving averages are flat, that's when it's at its weakest, but when it's angled up or down, that's when its support and resistance is actually stronger. So there's the 20. It's right there. And then if we go to the 50, you can see that you have to kind of zoom in a little bit. It's just barely started to happen. We do need to probably wait another week to see if this 20 can go higher above the 50. But that's very bullish when the 20 crosses the 50. Because ideally what you want is your short-term moving averages to be above the 50. In a bear market, typically what happens is the 50 is over the shorter term moving averages. If I throw on the 8 here, you can see that price is dropped down below the 8, but the 8 is above the 20. And right now the price is still in the zone of the 8 moving average. So long term, what we're looking at for a weekly perspective is we want this 20 to continue to separate itself from the 50, and we want all three of these moving averages to cross this particular this particular 200 moving average. Now, want to go, let me see here. I'm going to show some other things here. Let's see here. Okay. That's what I want to. I'm going to get rid of these ones here. Okay. Now what I've done is if we drop to the daily, okay, there is a support and resistance line about here, which is 0.002232. And if price is able to break out of this channel, its next support and resistance line is right here. And if we look at it from today's prices, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. And we go to here. And notice, we'll talk about this in just a second. But if we take this point here to there, if it's able to do that, that's 220% move. Okay. Now, if you take this move from here to here, that is 971%. Now, is that the best move ever seen in cryptocurrency? No. But one thing to consider is just because it hits this resistance zone, it may temporarily bring it back down. But if it gets up above this line, there's no other support and resistance until essentially $118. There's no order blocks, nothing. There's no other resistance because this was just one long. You could argue that there were certain points on these on the daily candle. It didn't just drop to 99% in one day, but those candles, you could argue that each wick of those candles could be support, but we're talking really, really far away. If we go over this line, I'm just going to take off some of these lines here so we can make note of it here. You have to really zoom in to see these each individual wicks because it looks like it's just one continuous candle, but it's actually just in less than a week it had dropped. So you could argue that the next resistance zone could be here, or it could be $1.26. I guess I hope that you're trying to see that there is no, you're essentially, even though this at one time, this coin was at $118, if it gets over this particular resistance, you may be looking at, pretty much the price of Luna Classic going into what we call price discovery. You don't know how high it's going to go. So that's in my mind, very bullish. Now, the other thing I want to look at is, let's go to this other chart. We're still on the Kraken chart. We're looking at it from a monthly perspective, and we're looking at the parabolic RSI, which measures oversold, overbought. So stochastic RSI measures momentum. Money flow index also measures oversold, overbought, but from the perspective of essentially price versus volume. And as you can tell, when we look at it from a monthly perspective, since about November of 2025, a lot of money has been going into Luna. And it got this high. That was in May. We're now in June. It's had a little dip off. And that's normal because, again, we've already went up 444%. There's going to be people who are going to start taking profits. That's a great move. And they're going to wait for Luna Classic to go back to a lower point to accumulate again and hopefully catch some more move. If you look at the momentum of Luna Classic on the monthly chart, we are in pretty much the highest point of momentum. We're sitting at 96. Now, if you take this, if you look at the last time we were up here for Luna Classic, and it had its highest momentum, if you take this cross here and measure it to there, this is right before, this is the time before it crossed under the 80, which typically means that momentum is going downward. That was 14 months. Right now, and there's nothing to say that it has to last the same amount of time, but if you take the cross here and you go to right about there, I think, and maybe it's easier to see. I'm going to do it underneath instead. We've been above 90 for 4 months. Now, does this mean that we have, that it can last 14 bars? No idea. I mean, each time is a little bit different. What I'm just trying to show you is that momentum could sit up here on the monthly scale for almost a year, possibly. So that means that momentum is pushing up to the upside. Now, the RSI is kind of funny. It's saying that Luna Classic is oversold, and even with a 444% move, it still looks practically flat. What I think is that the RSI is broken on the monthly exchange. From a monthly perspective, the RSI is like it doesn't know what's going on. Okay, it's broke. Now I'm going to go back to this chart, and we're going to go back to the monthly chart here, and let me squeeze in, and I'm going to take this particular parallel channel off. Take this horizontal line off. I'm going to check this horizontal line off. What I want you to see is that we are moving up. So if you look at the bars from a monthly perspective, you have some red bars here, but it's not breaking any lows. From a monthly perspective, everything looks good. I mean, it's rising. Okay, for it doesn't have a change in structure. So typically what you would say is that you're probably still bullish until you break this line here. And you could also argue that if this line is broken, you would have a change of structure, and we're not near it at this time. Now, right now, price is going down. However, it hasn't broken structure yet. And and this particular candle here, it has 13 more days until it prints. So I'm going to let's get rid of these lines here. And let's go to the weekly chart. And what I want to do is I want to bring up, let's bring up the 20 again. Well, I think we've already looked at this now. I'm sorry. I'm retracing. So let's go back to this chart. I want to go to the weekly on it. And as you can tell from a weekly perspective, these moving averages are slightly different because they're EMAs instead of simple moving averages. And So keep that in mind that when I'm looking at this other chart, I'm using simple moving average instead of EMAs. What we can see here based on the weekly chart is that we're having a pause in price action, which is very normal. Uh, you can think of there's this concept of waves, and this would be considered right here, wave one, and that was about 11 days from memory, and it had a pause, and then boom, you have wave two here, which goes to about right there, and now we're on another pause. So we're at two waves. And usually you can expect, if it's a normal setup in at least three waves. So we haven't had our third wave yet. And if the wave actually occurs, and most of the time it does, I don't know how far it's going to go. I'm not going to make any price predictions. But if I were to guess, it's probably going to try to cross this red line. And what we don't know is the red line, which is the 200 weekly moving average, will it get across that? And like I mentioned before, the red line is essentially at its best support and resistance zone. So I'm going to make this a little bit zoomed in so it makes more sense. Right now we've got 4 days until this candle closes, and it is what we call an indecision candle. Unless the structure of this candle changes significantly, uh, what an indecision candle means is that we could go either up or we could go down. But I'm going to guess that because we're in a pause, we're going to go down, and we're going to hit this 20 moving average. And of course, the hope is that that 20 moving average is then going to support the price, and it's not very far from the moving average. So uh, I'm just expecting maybe a little bit more of a downside is all I'm saying. Uh, if it hits it about here, that would be 0.00006464, and you want to look at its reaction when it hits this moving average. So if it continues kind of like this approximately, then if you start seeing a stronger candle, like maybe this or this, that's a sign that the 20 moving average is going to be support. And it'd be even more bullish if it overtakes any candle that follows this week and this week. That would be extremely bullish. And that move alone, depending on when you actually enter the trade, but if you take it from the 20, the 20 moving average to the 200, that's a 50% gain. Now, what we have to see is here it failed to cross the 200 week moving average. Can its second try get over the 200 moving average? Now, if we throw in I'm just gonna write this here, and we're gonna go, and we've got the 55 supposedly showing somewhere, but I don't see it. Unless this is it. Is that it? Let me make sure that's the case. I'm gonna hide all these. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Let me zoom in out on the weekly. Is it up here somewhere? No, I don't know where the 50 is. The 55 has disappeared on me. We've got the 200. Let me zoom out here. No. Well, okay, there we go. As you can see right now, the 20 is above the 50. Now I'm confused. Oh, because I went to the daily. Sorry. Okay. On the weekly, I do not know what happened to the 55 moving average. As you can tell on the daily, we're above it, but this red line is the 200-day moving average. I can prove that because boom, that's where it is. That's what's showing. I don't know what happened to the yellow line. Technical issues here. Okay, but I prefer simple moving averages anyway. So I'm looking at the weekly chart, and we've already talked about the 200. It's flat on the weekly chart from a simple moving average perspective. We got the 50, we got the 20. The 200 is across the 50 simple moving average. And if price is able to get above and then retest this 200 moving average line, probably by that time, these moving averages are going to cross the 200. And when the 50 moving average, which is that blue line, crosses the 200 moving average, that is called a golden cross and typically precedes huge moves in assets and stocks. However, you do like to see the cross go up at least this high. You don't want it to be like right there and then go down. So you want to pierce the 200 and significantly pierce it so that it's proof that you are in a golden cross situation. So therefore, what I'm saying is right now we're a little bit early in the move. However, Luna Classic, since essentially December 2025, while Bitcoin has been going down, has had a 444% bullish move. And it hasn't broken its structure yet to indicate that the bull run is over. What we have to do is just essentially wait. But if you are interested in getting this coin, like I said, I think your best bet if you're not currently in this coin is to look at the 20 moving average and look how on the weekly that price reacts to this moving average. If it bounces up and has a strong candle, that would be a great place to start investing because you would still have a lot of upside and it would be still very bullish even if it crosses the 200 moving average. That's all I have for today. This has been a long video. I'm sorry about that, but I think this is going to be a good coin and it's going to continue to have a good run. We don't know for sure yet. I may do an update in a couple weeks to kind of see where we're at. But however, in my mind, everything's looking good. We may have more upside on us. So that's all I have for today. Please have a blessed day. May God bless your family, and I hope that anything that you want to enter in as far as crypto assets, and you're going to be putting significant money into it. Please don't bet everything on a single coin. Don't use leverage, but please pray to the Lord for guidance. Even if you're not a believer, just talk to the Lord. Just pray to the Lord and say, look, I'm a sinner. I want to be a better person. Can you please guide me? And sometimes you just say, you just have to say that. I mean, and if you're interested, I think it's more important to have a relationship with Jesus Christ than trading. That's way more important than this. But please consider that as you are making these investments, especially if you have a family you're trying to support. Please keep all this in mind. Well, that's all I have again. Have a great day.